It's a pile of balls.
I had a little bit of unpleasantness to take care of, but now that I think that I have it all sorted, we can do something a bit fun. You see, I have a set of Warframe videos coming out soon about, basically just me trying to get ready for the new war, which everyone thinks is coming out soon, and I'm pretty excited for that. But first, I figured I'd go over some Warframe information that some of you might not be aware of because I don't know a whole lot of people who actually play Warframe. That's okay. That's what I'm here for. Have a seat. Class is in session. So, in the game Warframe, you are a space ninja. They call you a Tenno. The best way that I could describe the Tenno are. Hmm, mm, 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 mm. The best way that I could describe the Tenno are balance keepers of the galaxy. Yeah, more or less. Your job is to make sure that anyone who gets too powerful too quickly loses that power. Or if they're doing something sketchy, you're like space police ninja. Yeah. And some of the factions that you're space policing, one of them is called the Grenier. Now, from what I understand, the Grenier are all clones and they're all dying. So, how that works basically is everyone's a clone. They're like clone troopers, except way dumber and way more gross. You know that you're in a Grenier mission because they've got really crude, like mining, grungy industrial. Yeah, it's really grungy industrial type stuff, and it blends very poorly with like whatever natural environment they're in. Their ships are really smoggy. There's a lot of smoke um, all around. You'll be thinking like, why? If I wasn't in this fancy thing, jumping around, sliding around, this would probably be really, really disgusting to go through. That's how you know you're dealing with the Grenier. They're pretty easy to deal with because they are weak to slash and pretty much any element that you can think of. Um, I personally use the Grenier to test out all of my builds because when in doubt, test it out on a Grenier. The next faction is the Corpus. The Corpus are capitalist taken to an extreme. They're they're about two things, the Corpus. They're about robots and they're about money. Money this, money that. Um, they are most notably like the problematic faction, I'd say, because one, they were the first faction in Warframe that I'm aware of that were able to actually like deal um, noticeable damage to a Warframe. They're the first faction to actually capture and torture and like damage a Warframe. Before this, that had never really been a thing. Like Warframe were these untouchable, invincible, killing machines of destruction. The Now I thought that the leader of the Corpus was a boss named Alad V. He was really, really tough to deal with at the time. Um, Whenever anyone needed to farm for Valkyr, is the Warframe that you get for farming that boss. Whenever anybody needed to get Valkyr parts, it was always such a chore because the Alad V fight was one of the most hard bits of content that you could do back then. But that's not the only problem that the Corpus posed to Tenno. They have an enemy called a what are they called? What are they called? Um, a nullifier. That's what they're called. And essentially, what they are is they're one of like the three human, like actually human enemies that this faction has, and they have an energy shield around them that negates any and all Warframe abilities that go into it. So if you have an active Warframe ability and you go through it, it gets disabled. If you're standing inside of that bubble shield, that energy shield, you can't use any of your abilities. And seasoned Warframe veterans will know that that used to be a huge problem. Pretty much all of your survivability was based off of what your Warframe's abilities were, how quickly they could move around and not get hit, or just extra defense, or just being invincible, stuff like that. So to have an enemy that can just basically turn you into a slightly more agile grunt, that was a problem. Fortunately, however, time has eased the pain that they bring to the table. It used to be that the only way that you could deal with these is to basically hit the shield with like a projectile repeatedly, and every time it got hit, the shield would shrink in size as far as like the radius of it, and it would go away completely, and then you could get in close and do what you needed to do or continue to kill them at a distance. Now, however, they have these very small shield drones that are just outside the top of the shield. If you destroy those, the shield goes away completely and they stop being a problem. But it's important to keep in mind that out of all of the factions, like the Corpus had 2 or 3 very specific things that were just like, uh-oh, this is going to be a problem. Moving on, we have the Infested. The Infested are Digital Extreme watched a scary sci-fi movie and said, let's put these things in. They are sentient, organic material connected by a hive mind type of thing. They're also incredibly infectious to everything except the Tenno, luckily enough. So if you go to a ship that is infested, the only way to deal with that is to either blow it up or seal it off, which is why you won't. Typically, the missions that involve the infested are pretty much just kill anything that's moving, because if the infestation gets out, it could infect planets or, whatever. All of the other living factions in Warframe are pretty much afraid of the infested because of how quickly and how deadly the infection spreads. The infested are weak to stuff like toxin, viral, flames, basically the stuff that they use to kill the monster in horror movies. The infested are weak against all of that. Oh, I didn't mention what the corpus were weak to. The corpus are weak to stuff like magnetism, I think acid, stuff that would be damaging to like a robot. So if it sounds like something that you wouldn't want to get on your precious computer, that's what the corpus are weak to. Moving on, we have the Orokin. The Orokin are difficult to describe because they're kind of an amalgamation of all of the other factions. But what makes them special is they've been quote unquote tainted by the void. And I'll briefly go over what the void is. The void is basically a separate dimension that drives sentient material insane. Like it kind of breaks the laws of physics in a way. And again, well, the Warframes are, I guess, in a way, Orokin technology. So we're not just immune to it, we also get empowered by Orokin energy. So you go into the void is where that stuff is. And primed Warframes will get energy boosts by touching these orb things, where other frames don't get anything, or they'll get attacked by the Orokin traps and systems that are in the ships. But the Orokin, I mean, their weakness is pretty much the same as whatever their regular faction version is. So there's Orokin, Grineer, Corpus, Infested. And that's kind of how they mix things up because you'll be fighting infested enemies with Grineer and Corpus enemies all at the same time. So it's kind of their way of prompting you to switch up your styles mid mission as much as you can. Unfortunately, it didn't really work. Um, the Void used to be the place where you would go to grind for prime parts, prime weapons, prime warframes. It has since been kind of removed, and I don't really know what you go into the Void for anymore. It's kind of just there, which is unfortunate because I really like the Void. It's like the cleanest place that you can go in all of Warframe. But it is what it is. Lastly, we have the newest faction, the Sentients. The Sentients are, I guess, kind of like this ancient pre-Warframe. They predate all of the factions in the game. And they're also partially responsible for why the Tenno exist in the first place. The Sentients don't like Orokin technology, which we are partially comprised of. The Sentients are also very, very weak to the Void, so they can't go into the Void like we can, which is kind of our way of ducking away from them. They are the new problem of Warframe because their weakness, first off, they don't have one. And they actually gain resistances based off of what you use. So if you hit them with slash, impact, or piercing enough times, eventually they will resist that damage type, and you'll have to hit them with something else. I have a problem with these because I like slash. I have a lot of slashing weapons. And there have been a couple of times where they get resistant to all of the different damage types that I'm able to do, and I don't have enough to kill them, so they just resist everything that I can do. But it's been a while since I've dealt with them, so I think I could probably take them now. I've gotten significantly stronger, so I'll have to face them again to really see. But that is essentially it when it comes to the factions of Warframe. This information is just how I distinguish them. It's not 100% accurate. If you're looking for something that's 110% accurate and you want to min max your damage against them, you can find someone else's video. I don't have time for all of that. Anyway, please look forward to me going through the Deadlocked Protocol and what's that other quest called? I have another quest. The Sisters of Parvos? Oh, I can't end the video yet. There's something else to talk about. So, the two newest additions to the game as far as features are concerned, well, three, actually. First is something called a railjack. In Warframe, the guilds are called clans, and clans are able to build something called a railjack. It is essentially a giant ship that the entire squad, it's a squad of 4, will operate in order to do large-scale space battles. You do them in conjunction with your jetpack, which are called, don't tell me, arc wings. So you're flying around in space with a jetpack and a really big gun, and that's your arc wing. And you'll go to your railjack, and the railjack has a pilot and 2 gunners. So that's the first of the newest things that they've added. The second newest thing is Grineer liches. They are essentially mid boss level Grineer who get turned into kind of like a Mr. X sort of affair, if you're familiar with Resident Evil at all. How it works is you'll kill them. and then the Grenier leaders will bring them back to life as like a lich, and they will basically stalk you through different systems in the galaxy. Every time you complete a mission, they'll take portions of your rewards, and you basically have to eliminate their underlings in order to learn what their weakness is. And their weakness is a combination of 3 special mods that you equip to, um, like a dagger. And once you have the weaknesses known, you have to arrange those mods in the proper order, and then you can either choose to turn that lich into a servant who will randomly jump into missions and help you fight, or you can kill them and take their Grenier specific weapon that has randomly rolled stats on it. It's a pretty neat system, but it's accompanied with a lot of grind, which is a little unfortunate. So it can be kind of a headache to do. And if you're farming for a specific material that's kind of rare, and that lich is in that system, they have the potential to take it from you. You do get all of the materials that they've taken from you over time all at once you've defeated that lich. So it's not all bad, but it can be pretty annoying depending on what you're specifically trying to do at what time. And the final thing is that they've basically taken that same system and applied it to the Corpus. The Sisters of Parvos are essentially a Corpus version of the Lich system that I just described. I don't have too much information on that yet because I'm doing the quests right now to unlock them, and that's what the videos will be about, me going through the quests to get to the point where I can have a Corpus Lich. But yeah, that's the long of it, I guess. If you have any questions that don't apply to the specific weaknesses of these factions, please let me know down in the comments below, and hopefully you found this interesting enough. See you guys in another video.